Welcome back to Respect the Drive. I'm Tedward. How are you doing? Are you good? Are you enjoying the fall weather? Are you taking scenic drives with the top down, the coat on? You know, I really appreciated my seat warmer again. I know we always like to say we daily anything. We're car enthusiasts, right? So I publish a full-blown race car, and I say, ooh, this is a weekender, and I get 1,000 comments telling me, I drive this to work every day. But I realize how fake that is every time I get in my M3, and it's like 40 degrees, and I go straight for the seat warmers and realize, yeah, I don't want ideally a race car. And it's the perfect time for a classic, because one thing you forget is when you don't have air conditioning in the middle of summer, it's not that fun to drive. It's rough. My 911 is very hot in the summer. It's hard to arrive at a location looking sane. Every time I get out of that car after a summer drive, I look like I've just jumped out of a pool and maybe had a little too much to drink. You look dehydrated, you look tired, you just don't look well. And when it's this kind of weather, we can get a good 60, 55 degree day, like I had in the Speedster the other day, that unbelievable unrestored 1956 356A Speedster. I mean, what a car. 37,000 miles on that thing. Fully original, complete treat to drive that around some New England roads. And the beauty of a car like that is you can kind of rip on it a little bit, and you're never going much more than 5 miles an hour over the speed limit. Now, I didn't push it too hard, as you can understand. When you've got a car that valuable, when you're kind of kissing that $500,000 mark on a car that cannot be replaced, you can replace pretty much everything else, right? You have a reproduction car, you've got a kit car, even my 911, that can be replaced. It's worth okay money, but it can be replaced. This car, you can't replace the second owner's family keeping it preserved for 50 years. You just can't do it. But I'm looking forward to sharing more cars like that. I love a car with a story, and that's what I'm having fun with. And speaking of fall weather in New England, keeping my cars out of the elements, the rain, the gross leaves coming down, leaving their imprints all over my paint. Thankfully, my E39 M5 is covered up at Garage 42 in Woburn, Massachusetts, if you need to store your beautiful ride and keep it in a nice climate-controlled, secure environment. Give them a call up at Garage 42. And a lot of you have reached out to me on Instagram after I published my career update, I guess you can say, 7 months since I quit my job. And for the most part, the messages are just, an outpouring of support, which is incredible. But a lot of folks are asking for advice. And I want to give a warning. I can't really give advice. I can give my experience. And I would always be wary of folks who are really eager to offer advice, because although I had a plan and a little bit of a strategy, it all could have fallen apart. There's always a bit of chance in this stuff. So, I mean, when I give advice, I always err on the side of be conservative financially. Make sure you don't take any risks you can't afford to, you can't afford to lose. If it's all or nothing, I'm going to tell you to just stay put until you've saved enough to make a leap. But yeah, I think it was also really humbling to see so many people in the engineering field, with a lot of students too, man. Oh my goodness, a lot. I feel bad because I didn't mean to put pressure on too many engineering students to say you're going to hate your life in corporate America. It's not the case. It's me. It's my experience. It's how I feel in an environment like that. I don't fit in. And maybe you do. Maybe that's going to be the path for you. My guest today is Jake Thiewes of Out Motorsports. It's an LGBTQ plus driven community, but it's not car news for gays. So, don't run off yet. This is actually a conversation that I was really happy to have on the mics. It's not sappy. It's not a lecture. I think me and Jake just kind of shared some experiences that we've both had and what we hope to see grow in the motorsports community, and what ultimately will be more healthy for the sustainment of what we love to do. That's drive. So, without further ado, here's Jake. The introduction to this, I feel, is Out Motorsports. So what is Out Motorsports? What's the goal here?
Well, so the whole point behind what we're doing is kind of twofold. So one is to highlight people who are already, uh, you know, out and involved in the automotive world or the motorsport world as their whole selves. So if you identify as LGBT plus and you're out, going to the track and you're very, forthcoming with who you are, not to say you show up with bells on at every racetrack event, but like, if you're showing up and when people talk about their partners, you're willing to say my boyfriend, my husband, my wife, my girlfriend. I mean, that's a huge step in and of itself. So that's the one bit, is to just share the stories of the people who are already doing this thing, and then the other bit is more to encourage people who think that um, it's not possible to have this intersectionality between loving cars and wanting to go race and wanting to go off-roading and join in all these fun activities and being queer in some
Right.
way.
So you hit a big one for me. Now I've always been out on my channel, but it's not the focus. I did it because I never wanted I never wanted to come out. I didn't like that idea. I don't like coming out. I don't
Right.
but the thing people don't recognize is that coming out isn't a singular event. It's a constant thing. And
Exactly.
when you said like just the oh, my boyfriend, my husband kind of thing, being able to say that at a racetrack, being able to kind of bring up your normal life with an instructor who's like, oh, yeah, hey, like, you're meeting people a lot of times. You get in a car,
Right.
they're like, who are you? Where are you from? What do you do? You got a family? And like, you got a family is always the big one, whether it's at work, whether it's at an event, whether it's whatever for gay men, and I'm sure for women as well, because it is awkward. You don't necessarily know who you're giving this information to, and you don't know if it's going to impact the experience you're about to have. And
Exactly.
on the one hand, most people will be like, oh, yeah, whatever, that's cool. Like, oh, what's his name, right? They're just going to have a normal conversation with you.
Hmm.
But there's always that off chance that that is a weird thing for them. And unfortunately, it does matter, because if it's a weird thing for them, that interaction becomes a weird thing for you.
Right. And it will affect the experience that you're having at whatever event or function, where this has all come up.
And I have that regular, like, it's crazy how often that happens and how infantilizing it is. Like, suddenly you're like a child afraid to talk, or like, it is weird. I mean, most people for the most part know me and know who I am. So I don't have to worry too much, but I did have an encounter somewhat recently with some cars that I was looking at, and not to buy, of course, just to like, we were potentially doing videos and things like that.
Sure.
And they kept making like gay jokes. They kept making like, and not like cutesy gay jokes, like kind of gay jokes that I would have heard in high school,
Mm,
kind of razzing each other in a little bit of a macho way. So, but it wasn't the kind of thing where I was like, ugh, like, would I, would I inform these people, or am I going to ruin my own experience? And then by not informing them, am I a traitor to myself for not being on? Like, what level is it your own safety versus it's you just being too chicken shit to do it?
right. Yeah. And it's interesting. So, I am not, I'm not always the most like open and out there with, who I am and my feelings and all these things all the time. I think I can come across sometimes as a little quiet or a little walled off, depending on what's going on. And I made the conscious choice with Out Motorsports to lead with this because, having been around the amateur motorsports world and following some semi-pro and pro motorsport, and then getting to know people in other aspects of the automotive industry, whether it's at a manufacturer or PR for a brand, or an independent third party that's working with different brands. There's a lot of family all over the place, and I think a lot of people go to great lengths to shift the conversation if something comes up, because they are afraid of losing a sponsorship, a deal, a business partnership, a whatever. And I think there are two things that are working in my and our favor. Um, this is there's a privilege of sorts that I feel like I have, in that I'm 6'1". I have a deep voice and a good beard. And that goes a long way in getting people who may not like, quote, the gays to like you.
Yeah.
And I hate that it's a thing, but I think it's a thing depending on who you're meeting and where you're going.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it has opened a few doors. So I feel a responsibility to do what I can when the door is open. So I feel like that's, it's kind of, why we're here. And then the other big bonus compared to a lot of folks I'm trying to perhaps inspire or do things differently than is I have a day job.
Right.
I have literally nothing to lose. If someone doesn't want to let me drive their car, come on a driving event, send me press loans, invite me to a race weekend, fine.
Right.
I don't care. I have nothing to lose. It's not my career. And I now have a platform where if I need to talk about some inequality, we can talk about it.
Exactly. So this is what I like about what you're doing, because you're taking it to a place where it's very on the surface, you're like, out motorsport. It's like, oh, okay, so it's super gay, but like it isn't, and that's what I like about it, because we'll get into this a little bit too, but just because you're gay doesn't mean you fit into the gay community either.
Well, the community is just very widespread for types of people you meet.
Exactly. And I like that when I go to outmotorsport.com or your channel or, whatever feeds you have, I'm reading articles about cars. I'm watching videos about cars. There's really nothing other than, the thing that I like about it is it's empowering, because it says like, this content is created by gay people, trans people, whatever. Like,
exactly.
This community, this LGBT. Look, I'm like kind of hopped up on coffee, so saying LGBTQ plus is not going to come out very quickly for me. But like, I like that it's saying like, right on the surface, it's basically saying, by the way, you can do this. That's what I like about
exactly.
it. Right. And I also wanted so one of the things I wanted to ask you is, because this is Out Motorsport, is it exclusively gay created or LGBTQ plus created?
I would say yes, except the answer is technically no at this point. I have one friend named Taylor who is very much on the straight side of the spectrum, and Taylor is lovely and buys a bunch of terrible cars for $500 at a time.
He sounds great.
Yes, I love going to his house to look at and work on and drive his projects, and then not have to fix them myself. Anyway, he bought a BMW E21 320i and made a video. He's like, hey, if you want to share this on your channel, here's me getting the car running after it sat since 1991.
Yeah.
And he has offered to do more because we have the reach, and he just wants to share what he's up to. So
see, I like that. I like part of what you're doing, I think, is just such a broad inclusivity, and I like that it doesn't that's the thing. Part of inclusivity is being inclusive, right? So it's like,
right. I am not looking to only have LGBT creators, but I want to have a space where those people can be creators, and also anyone else who wants to share something on our platform gets lumped in as this ally, this active ally.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the thing. I remember, I don't know if it's quite the thing it used to be, but when I was in high school, I remember we had the GSA, the Gay Straight Alliance, right? Which on the surface sounds so goofy. When you say it out loud, sometimes I say that, I'm like, oh my God. Like, I wasn't part of it probably I wasn't part of it because I was too afraid of my own sexuality to walk in the door of a room,
right.
like that. Oh my God, they're going to figure out I'm gay if I'm in GSA. But one thing that happens a lot, and I get I'm sure you get this a lot. I get a lot of DMs from like gay youth who either say, oh my God, I just watched your video and I thought I was the only one. I thought I was the only like gay car guy, which like maybe 2 years ago, that was really interesting to me. Now I'm like, dude, come on, like do a little research, right? Like we're out here. But on the other side, I'm like, wow, this is so humbling that, and like, I feel so, it's incredible to feel like, wow, your thing, the thing you did made them feel part of something, or like, oh, there's other people like me.
Yeah, it's huge. And The interesting thing with the DMs, and I thought I was the only one. Part of and this is, I'll try and make this short. Part
Yeah,
of
it's a
why.
podcast, man. It doesn't matter.
All right. Well, part of why I wanted to create what we created is because when I was still trying to find my footing, out of college, living in the DC metro area, like there's a lot of people to meet. It's great if you're LGBT. A lot of bars, a lot of people to meet, a lot of
DC is definitely like
sports leagues.
The intro course to hey, I could play football and I'm gay and now I have a whole bunch of friends.
Right. But if you don't fit into one of those groups, I did the Stonewall Kickball League for 3 or 4 seasons, and it was fun enough, but it just kind of wasn't my people.
Sure.
So I started Googling, and it's like, if I could find anything that's like gay car people, I would love to be a part of that. And this has been a few years now for you and me and everyone else, but when I started searching, there was nothing that you could find, whether you looked on YouTube or Google or Facebook or forums or whatever. So I just decided to create the thing I couldn't find on Google, and aggressively hit everything with SEO and metadata and whatever else to make sure other people could find us. And we've received those messages of, this is so cool. I'm so glad this exists. You make me feel like I can be both of these things. And it's tremendously validating that what we're doing matters to someone besides ourselves.
I know. That is the best feeling ever, because I mean, look, it's one thing when I can help someone make a decision to turbo their Miata or not. I mean, great.
Right.
But like, it's another thing when someone's like, oh, I feel less alone on Earth right now. Like that's that's a nice feeling. And I like talking to these guys, these kids. A lot of them are kids. They're so young. They're in college, they're in high school, and they're just kind of like figuring themselves out. And I'm already like, dude, you're way ahead of me, because I didn't come out. I don't know about you. I came out, I was what, 20? Yeah, I was 20. I was in college and I had a girlfriend, and I was like not really enjoying that the way I thought I would. And then, things changed real quick, and I was like, oh, I figured this out in a heartbeat. And it sucked. Coming out sucks. It sucks to be 20. It sucks because you have to tell your friends if they didn't already know. And if they already did know, then that sucks too, because then it's not even an event. They're just like, finally.
Exactly.
Dude, it's like the worst, and it's so awkward for so many reasons. But you got to do it, and you're going to have to do it a lot.
Right. To your point, you do it again and again.
Yeah. Well,
it's
so
just it's something that never stops.
Given your position in this like out motorsports production, I feel like it's probably fair game to ask your story a little bit. Is that not overreaching?
No. So I only had one real girlfriend, and it was in high school. And she was great. And we broke it off after a little while because it just wasn't, it wasn't working for a variety of reasons. We had met in drama. I was a total fine arts nerd in high school. So I was doing, 3 bands and 2 choruses, and I was in drama on the technical end because I can't act to save my life.
I wouldn't have even been brave enough to do those things. Like, I would, as much as I love to be on camera, on stage, all this stuff. Like, you couldn't have paid me to do it when I was in that insecure position, because it would have blown up my spot. Like,
yeah, well, it was. I mean, that's why I tried acting one time, and I hated every minute of it, with all the spotlights and everything. So I'm amazed that I've gotten comfortable with the camera now, but it's been a bunch of years. So yeah, I had this one girlfriend in high school, and then it didn't really work out. And then, I was very slowly figuring things out on my own. And, there was one guy in high school who was from the competing high school's drama department. So that's how we met. And he was kind of my foray into like, okay.
What does Tina Belcher call that? Are those called BOFOs, boys? No, BFOs, boys from other schools? Yeah, BFOs.
BFO, yes.
That's from Bob's Burgers.
I haven't seen that show in so long.
Oh, I literally watch it nightly. It's pathetic. But anyway, go ahead.
So he was kind of the first little catalyst, and then, off to college, and things just kind of snowballed from there. And I did what I think a lot of people have done maybe in the past. Maybe now it's different because this is all more accepted and cool. Um, I came out as bi before I came out as gay,
Okay.
by a
Yeah.
period of several years.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
I came out as bi and then immediately started only dating men, which tremendously confused my parents because they didn't quite know what to do with like the label versus the actions that I was taking.
Right.
Um, but they were very supportive through the whole thing. And then finally, my mom and I were out. I was home on break for something, and we were out at the mall walking around, and some girl at like the shoe store at Journeys or something was like
Classic.
shamelessly flirting with me. And we left the store, and she's like, "You didn't reciprocate that. Like, are you aware of what was happening?" And I said, "Yeah. I need to tell you something." And that was like me finally being very unapologetic of like, I have figured this out. I have decided how I want to identify and how I do identify. And like, now we can really call a spade a spade.
Yes.
And, you know, I'm very fortunate in that I have two loving parents who are very open-minded, supportive. You know, they get it in every sense of the word.
Sure.
My mom lived in San Francisco in the late 70s, early 80s and had a trans friend. Like that, you know, it was never a problem. But I also have friends who, you know, did not have the same experience as myself.
Well, it can also be, I mean, for example, like my parents, they would take us to like these very artsy parties through my aunt because they were like deep into the art scene. And we would go to like, and when I say I to this day, I think I went to gayer parties as a 12 and 13-year-old than I have today. Like easily far gayer parties as a 13-year-old. And even though we had those experiences, and even though I knew like my parents were like friends with these people, it still felt like, ooh, what's it going to be like when it's in their backyard? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
you know, it's one thing when it's like, oh, it's fine over there because we always got to leave, right? We always got to leave.
Right.
And you would still hear them talk about, and I feel like I'm throwing my parents under the bus right now, but yeah, whatever. Like you would still hear them talk about it and kind of like retell the jokes they told in the voice and like little, you know, but nothing that wasn't really unkosher for the time of like late 90s, early 2000s. Like it is what it is. I mean, it was like if you heard this today, you'd probably be horrified. But like back then, it would be like telling a Will and Grace story at a water cooler. Like, you know,
right. It was just different.
It was just different. So it still made me intimidated. I still wasn't super comfortable with it. But no, that's awesome. How did you feel? Or when did you start finding like, I guess, you know, you're Googling the things, you start finding like these other gay motorheads. Like when were you, hey, I have a friend? Because for me, I think it was Eric Roby's group on Facebook, the gay, is it gay sports car fans or gay, I forget which one is which. There's a few of them. But I remember like joining that group and like meeting all like these Southern California guys. And they were all like in LA and San Diego. And so I happened to do a road trip or something out to LA. And they were like, hey, let's go to dinner. I like met all these guys. I'm like, oh my God, like these dudes all just like rolled up in like a fleet of sweet cars, great exhaust, like Mustangs, Jaguars, like you name it, like Focus STs, Fiestas, whatever. Golf R's, and I'm just having dinner with these dudes and it was great. I'm like, oh sweet, like this is like a nice little community. And it happened a couple times, like once in Long Beach, once in I think San Diego. And you know, I was like, wow, this is actually really nice that I had made this. They found me through a video, or Eric did, and it was cool that it went from like me feeling like, hey, maybe I'm going to publish this thing about myself just for the hell of it. And at that point I didn't have a lot of gay car friends. I mean, I had some, but not like on a national level. And then that happened. I was like, whoa, this is way bigger than me. This is cool.
Yeah. I definitely had that moment. And, you know, so I like I said, I came out in college and then graduated and, you know, I kept doing track stuff and bought the M3 and that snowballed.
Oh yeah. You're going to meet a lot of boys with an E36 M3.
Yes, but you meet fewer of them when you can only drive it at a racetrack. You're limited to the pool that is attending the event.
It's true.
So but I had a few friends from college. There was a motorsports club in college, and I had a couple friends who were gay and in that club, and then also were either doing track days with me or working at the events.
Sure.
So we would kind of pal around. But what actually led me to realize there was this big community and this might be worth doing something was a friend of mine who is fairly prolific in the Honda and Acura community. An article got posted about one of his cars on a news blog that I was reading over lunch every day at work. And there were pictures of him. And I developed a little crush.
Ooh.
I'd never met him. And at the bottom, it said, if you want to get in touch, here's his email. So I just shot him an email.
Oh, I love that.
And it was just like, hey, I love the story. I'm out in DC. It said nothing of how to get identified or any of that.
Sure.
I just shot him a nice note. So we started corresponding by email. And eventually he invited me out to visit for like a long weekend.
Nice.
So I got on a plane and went and visited and hung out. It was the same thing like you said. Hung out with him and all of his friends. We did all these drives, lots of cool cars. And when I was leaving to go home, he said, hey, I'm going to add you to a Facebook group. I think you'll like it.
Sweet.
And it was a completely hidden group, but it was at the time probably 3,000 or 4,000 people deep of gay car guys.
Yeah.
So that was how that went. And, I didn't know what was going to happen when I got on the plane. It turned out to become a friendship that still persists to this day, which is awesome. But that was kind of the eye opener of, hey, we're here and we're everywhere and we're into all sorts of different things. And that got my gears turning in my own head for how can we make people not feel like, you and I have felt where, okay, I know a couple people, but that's it. And now several years later, that one big group has spawned into different regional groups based on where you live. And there's a good group of probably 40 or 50 of us in the DC area that get together all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And it's like, I think it's just like heartwarming to have that. And I think one of the reasons why I wanted to be kind of out, not like, loud and proud, but just be like, this is a casual thing I might mention once in a while. Is because I wasn't seeing the representation in media necessarily. And, you and I both know there are like most people would probably be shocked at how many of their favorite car reviewers, journalists, YouTubers, whatever, are gay. And it's always funny. I love it when people discover it and then tell me as if I'm learning for the first time. About these people, and it's like it's never who they think. I mean, some of them are, but like it's rarely who they think. And that's the thing is, I think it takes a lot of the machismo out of the equation, because some of the guys that they would be like, oh my God, he's got these 1,000 horsepower drag cars and all this crazy stuff. Like he's a macho dude. I'm like, yeah, well, guess who goes home to his boyfriend?
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, that dude does wheel stands and then he snuggles up to his guy.
Right. And that's like, that should be normalized.
I know. And it's like, yeah, he's still just as fucking tough and he's still going to take your money when you try to race him. It's just the way it goes. And I love that. And I think, for me, your out motorsport thing is the change, because the change I want to see isn't like more gay people. I don't give a shit. Like not more gay people. It's like more people like being honest with themselves, because they're not afraid to lose the sponsorships. They're not afraid to lose the money, because that's what I think. Like, and I mean, like, look, you're going to tell me that there's no gay people in the NFL or the NBA, or
exactly.
I'm like, dude, like there's so many gay people in these organizations. Like,
right. And what's interesting is some of that does get covered by different media, whether it's like LGBT focused media or otherwise. When different players come out in football, baseball, basketball, hockey, soccer, whatever, it gets covered. What doesn't get covered by any of that is motorsport.
Right. There's a couple.
It is a forgotten sport. And the only splash that's been made in recent history that I can recall is Hurley Haywood.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was not while he was actively racing.
Right. And
So I just find that sad. We got to change that.
I agree. And I do notice more, like, personally, but again, it's because maybe I just have more of a network in this thing, but like I am noticing more and more people, even at my own track events. Now, I have not been tracking this season because I'm poor this year, so we're going to work on that. But like I did, there have been times when I've like reviewed a car, right? And then the person who offered me a car, maybe they saw a few of my videos and just liked my driving style or what I was doing. They're like, hey, yeah, come drive my thing. And then later on have messaged me like, oh, hey, I didn't know you were gay. I'm gay. I would, made like a cute remark like, oh, I would have dressed up nicer had I known, like,
Right.
And I'm like, oh, that's so funny. Like, it's cute. And it's also funny that I'm like, you still get into this mode where you're like, do I pass? Right. Like, and that's not an attitude that you should have because it shouldn't matter. And I always find it strange because I always feel like I'm being myself. I always feel like that's the situation. So not that you can look at a person and know they're gay, but for somebody who has kind of lived in this bubble with a little bit of fear all the time, wondering like, do people know? You always just feel like everybody knows who I am. Everybody sees that. And then, you're just waiting for like the ridicule or the vitriol from mean people. Most of the time, that's just not the case. And it's totally in your head. It still just takes a lot to, I don't know.
Right. And it's also, I think it's very different if these people who you might perceive to be bigoted or mean-spirited or whatever actually meet someone who identifies as LGBT.
Right.
I have been told by several people, and keep in mind, I've been working for the Mid-Atlantic region of NASA since 2008.
Yeah.
So this has been a long, long run here. I've been told by so many people that I have changed their opinion of gay people because they just didn't know anyone before me.
Isn't that a weird
feeling? I find that staggering.
That's such a weird feeling.
Because all I've done is just show up and be me and answer questions. I've made it clear that they can ask me questions, but and then, like, I'm not going to immediately, call you some awful name because you ask something or say something. I'd rather take the time to educate. So
it's funny because I'm doing to you right now what I hate people do to me, which is like, hey, let's talk about being gay because you're gay. but in the context of this discussion, I feel like it matters because, we're talking about your publication. We're talking about what's going on. We'll get off of this in a minute. But like, that is a thing that, on the one hand, like, yes, you want to be somebody's liaison to tolerance, right? Like, that's a nice place to be. You want to be someone who they can ask questions to and maybe joke around a little bit with and just kind of like, feel things out. On the other hand, like, you don't want to be like every time you walk in the door, it's the only thing they talk about. And that's what irks me. Yeah. And it has not been that way for me. I've just been the resource. It does. And I'm sure you've felt the same way. It gets exhausting. Yeah. There are some times where I just want to say, look, read the news, read a book, like, think for yourself for a minute. And it's hard, but I have to remember these are people with different backgrounds, different experiences. So I try to keep that in mind. But, the one question that still stands out, and this was many years ago at this point, was from someone who had known me for a long time. And he goes, we've talked for a long time. I get it. I get the gay thing. He goes, I don't get the trans thing. What is that? Oh my God. And it was not from a mean-spirited place. It was just like, I hate the term, but he's a boomer. Sure. Has no experience, may have trans friends that he just doesn't know are trans, but has never met someone or known someone who self-identifies or is going through the process. So as kind of tedious as it felt at the time, I was happy to take some time and say, hey, let me send you some stuff and we can talk, you can read, we'll have a phone call. So I'm always happy to do that, but it does get a little tiring. I think you're right. But I think it's better that folks, like, I'm sure you agree, like, it's better that folks come to you and kind of figure it out rather than just decide, I hate that. Right. Like, I'll always field a really poorly or insultingly worded question versus somebody just saying, like, no, don't let them in our bathrooms. Exactly. I'd rather just answer the question.
Right.
You want to be like, ooh, 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 I hear what you're saying. Don't ever say that again, but let's have a
Right.
conversation.
I'm going to tell you why what you said is wrong, but I'm not going to be mad at you for it.
And that's the thing. I don't even feel like I'm enough of a resource for things like that, because I'm like, well, that's not my experience. Like I can advocate and I can speak for it because I understand what it's like to be different. I understand what it's like to be other, and I understand what it's like to kind of realize something about yourself that isn't quote unquote normal to the rest of your friends or society or whatever. And that, I think, is the relation to, which is interesting that transgender folks get lumped in with gays, because it's like, it's very different. Like one is like gender identification, one is sexual orientation.
Exactly.
And so it's like, I always feel like I'm way in left field when someone wants me to have that conversation, because I'm like, well, look, I'm going to give you what I can give you. It still may not be totally right because I only understand it from an orientation perspective, but I can tell you what it feels like to know something's different about you than
Exactly.
whatever. And I can get you there. But like, if you're asking me like, what's it like to be a woman trapped in a man's body? Like I can't get you there. I can help you understand it.
Yeah. But that's the point where I say here, like conceptually, theoretically, I have trans friends who I've talked about this with, but I can't tell you that from a first person experience.
But that's another one. There are some big transgender YouTubers, man, and they don't know, and I love it. And I'm like, on the one hand, I love it because I'm like, dude, I love how accepting people are of this person and how they go about what they're doing. On the other hand, I'm like, man, how scared must they be to have folks find out? Or is it just so not really their aim to be that person that they don't want anyone to know? Like, why should I have to fucking tell you? If you think I'm attractive in this form, why do you need to know anything more about me?
Right. And I based on the trans friends I have and, trans connections I have in my bigger network, I think that's a very different answer depending on who you're talking to.
Well, there's that's the thing. I feel like trans fear is a lot closer to like 1960s gay fear. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like
it's that community is, I think, not quite on the same level yet, and it's sad.
Sure. It's really upsetting.
I'm hoping it will get there.
So, I mean, that's the thing. I think we both share the idea that like how do you walk the balance though? I guess, all right, I know I'm saying this like in three different directions. How do you walk the balance between like it's a non-thing versus representation versus like living your life on the racetrack? I mean, I think from an NFL, it's easy to use sports. So let's say you're an NFL player, right? Like, you don't need to have a fucking press conference. Just kiss your husband or your boyfriend when you win. Like that says it all. Why do you need to say another word? Whereas like, I'd like to see a little more of that on, like, wouldn't it be cool? You get like a Formula One driver who's got his like hot trophy boyfriend sitting in the stands instead of his like bombshell blonde wife, right? Like,
right.
That's kind of cool. I'd be down with that. Like, and
right. It's a normalization thing. Of if you're going to bring a +1, bring whoever.
Can you imagine like a Ferrari factory Formula One driver having a really like style conscious, like knockout boyfriend who becomes a fashion icon because they are the spouse of a Formula One driver? Like, think about it in the terms of like, you have Victoria Beckham, not that she's not, her own person, but like Victoria Beckham is like a fashion icon, and, since and I don't necessarily think that wasn't just the Spice Girls doing that for her. It was like she got that second wave because she marries David Beckham. Right. So I imagine that with somebody who's like married to a Formula One factory driver and is just like the ultra cool right hand of everybody's fucking hero because he just podiums all the time.
Right. I mean, that's a wonderful thought, and what saddens me is like I don't know if that could be reality. I don't know if we're there yet.
I know, and that you're right. Like, it is sad because I know I just said that, and I'm like, oh, I don't think that's happening in my lifetime, or at least not for a very, very long time.
Yeah, it just there's still progress to be made, but hopefully the visibility, and what we're trying to push will help that in whatever form. So we'll see.
I mean, I guess from my perspective, it's like the more you just kind of represent it, but you don't shove it down people's throats. It's like there's the balance, right? Excuse me. There's always going to be people. I mean, you're always going to have the YouTubers and Instagram. I mean, Instagram, for example, you're famous on Instagram because you're hot, right? You can consider like who, if you're a guy and you like cars and you're straight, your Instagram like homepage is going to be two things. It's going to be cars and it's going to be boobs, right? Like you're going to be like, oh, these are the two things I click on. And most of the time, the ones that you're really going to go and dig through and search through are going to be like, whoa, who is this girl? Because you know there's like 900 other photos of this girl on her Instagram page. And the same goes with men. Like if you're a hot guy and you're like, oh yeah, like let me just post this like really like casual photo of me on the beach in the South Pacific because I just casually am here all the time doing crunches. That is going to get you the clicks. And so from a perspective on YouTube, we also see that with thumbnails, right? A shirtless photo of a beautiful man or like, like a beautiful like cleavagey shot of a woman is always going to get a click more than my Miata. Like, right? Like a 440 horsepower Miata that someone gives me to drive is interesting to a lot of people. Yes. However, boobs and abs always trump literally everything. Like cars are great. We all think that cars are life, but sex sells way harder than that. So it's like, how do you strike that balance? Because I do see like a lot of male YouTubers, whether they're gay or not, like they're gonna do like the sexy, like, ooh, here's me with my car, but they happen to be shirtless. It's like,
right.
And is that I mean, I don't really have the option to do that because I don't spend that much time on my body. So it's not going to happen. I'm going to have to rely on those sweet, sweet hands with the POV. But like, how do you strike the balance between being like, oh yeah, like is it okay to have like gays in motorsport use their sexuality to normalize it? Or is it too far? Is it, yeah, I think that's my question.
Well, so I mean, I can only speak to what we're doing. But the other thing, to go back to when I was, Googling and trying to find a community that didn't really exist, I did find one fairly prolific, I guess, Instagram celebrity, whatever you want to call. I don't know what you call Instagram.
Sure.
Influencers. We'll go with influencer.
Yeah.
Anyway, this person was very much into the pictures of themselves with cars, and the whole thing was very car themed. And I thought, oh, great. And this person was very open with the fact that they were gay.
Sure.
So I thought, oh, great. I found the holy grail of someone to talk to, and maybe there's this community. And I ended up meeting this person in real life, as part of a get together in DC. They just happened to be here, and realized very quickly they were not that. The depth of car enthusiasm was not necessarily there.
Right.
So
right.
They were banking mostly on the sex sells element of it, which is awesome. If you can make that your career and you want to make that your career, I am not trying to throw any shade at that. That's awesome. But with what we're doing, I made the conscious decision that I don't really care how many subscribers and clicks and whatevers we get, because I want to do this authentically.
Yeah.
And what you don't have, whether you're a gay man or a straight man at a racetrack, is half naked people draped all over cars. What you have is sweaty people climbing out of cars, pulling suits off with a cool shirt on.
You're totally right. And I think it kind of has this double-edged sword where, like, on the one hand, you're like, that's like not the kind of ethical, moral way I wanted to go about making this a thing. But at the same time, you're like, well, if someone else is doing it and it kind of yields the same results and exposure, I guess it's for the best.
Yeah, I think to a point, but like we're doing this thing on our Instagram that I've started calling Humans About Motorsports, which is just to share pictures and info of our followers.
Yeah.
Because, maybe you don't have the time to write articles consistently, but you want to say, hey, this is me. Here's the car I've got. Here's what I'm doing with it. So I am happy to make a post that is just that, with a couple photos of you in your car.
Right.
I will always lead with a picture of the person, not a picture of the car,
Excellent.
because the person will stand out more than the car. We posted one today. You will get more attention wearing a helmet with a little rainbow decal on it than you will of another E36 M3.
I dig. I love it. I love that. And it's funny because
So
I like from what I've seen so far, those are very like authentic photos. Unlike when you go into like a lot of gay groups on Facebook and it's like introduce yourself. It's basically like a Tinder photo. Instead
yes.
of like imagine you go into like just a Corvette Club of America group or something like that, and it's like introduce yourself. Like your photo of you is not gonna be sexy. Your photo of you is gonna be like, yeah, this is me standing next to my vet. Whereas
Right.
like you go in the gay group and it's like, hi,
It's like portrait mode, drink in one hand, smiling, looking off in the distance. Like I can narrate that whole shot.
So it's so I mean it's funny, and I don't mean to shit on it because I appreciate my gay brothers. I appreciate how it works. I do think it's funny sometimes because it's like one of the things about gay culture, especially in gay car culture, and this is I think where people need to realize like it can be hard to meet people with similar interests. It can be hard to meet people at all, especially if you don't live in a major
Right.
city. If you live out in rural America, like finding, trust me, if you've swiped for 12 minutes on Tinder in the middle of nowhere, like you've already gone through everybody. And you're like,
Right. And they're all 50 miles away.
yeah. And you're like, uh-oh, that was the pool. And you're like, shit, I just swiped left on all of them. But like, when I think what happens with these groups is they're not thirsty, but they're not thirsty. Like everyone's kind of like a little bit making themselves slightly available just because.
Oh, there's a little bit of peacocking.
Oh, for sure. Because you're basically maybe for the first time introducing yourself to a field of eligible bachelors who share an interest. And I mean, a lot of folks I know have a lot of gay guys who are into cars have never dated someone who gave a shit about cars.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had a few relationships with car people, and it's not all it's cracked up to be, because a lot of times they think they like cars, but they're like, "Ooh, I like the red one." Different kind, different place on the spectrum than me.
Right.
And then there's other people who maybe are like way into like a niche, right? And it's like, I mean, think about this. I have so much respect for any woman who's like husband or boyfriend spends all night, every night in a garage, like building an engine or whatever, because like, I don't even want that. Like,
right.
I'm going to be like, oh my God, all you do is work on that stupid fucking car. Like, let's go do something. You never drive it. Is it ever going to? And I'm like, oh my God, I could possibly be the person who hates the car guy.
Right. Well, and beyond all that, you have to just be compatible outside of the car thing.
Yes. I mean, that's the thing. That's one interest. Like, are you, yeah. So you think each other is sexy. Congrats. Step number one. Step number two, you both like cars. There's a whole bunch of other parts of your life that really need to coincide.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of people who think that, oh, I met someone else into cars and now we're getting married. And the reality is you may meet someone who doesn't even own a car, and they're your person.
Right. From what
and they're willing to get into the hobby and ask questions, understand it, but they're not a car person, and they don't care enough, but that's okay.
Exactly. I mean, from what my experience, really, it doesn't matter if it's a car. Sometimes it's nice to date a car person, to date someone who's into cars. But to be honest, really all that matters is that you respect each other's interests.
Exactly.
And that's it. Like if you can have that, it doesn't really matter what you're into.
Right.
So, I mean, for those, if there's any people listening that's like, I'll never meet the guy that wants to go drifting with me, or like, you don't have to, as long as he doesn't.
They just have to ask you questions about drifting and support your habit, and maybe come take pictures or video.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Exactly. Like if they like golf, I don't know, go golfing with them. I don't golf, but like, or whatever they do. I don't know. What do normal people, I don't even know what normal people do. What do normal people even do anymore?
Don't ask me. Like, I have no idea.
Like, I don't have any normal, like nothing I do during my day is like what any normal human being would go about during their day. I spend my day fielding emails about people who are offering their cars to be featured. And then I go to either a dealership or a strange location where someone has cars. I drive those cars. I talk about those cars. And then I get out of the car and I talk about the car more. And then I go home and then I edit the car and then I post it. And then what do? I respond to comments about the car. Like,
Right. And then lather, rinse, repeat.
And then I decided why not start a podcast where I can talk about cars. So
exactly.
I mean, that's the thing. If like, everybody needs to just find people who can respect each other's interests. You don't have to be up each other's throats about everything. It would get boring. But you got to be able to do a road trip with each other and, have those at least.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
What can we expect from you guys coming, or not? I guess it's not all men. From you people. What can we expect from you people going forward? Because I love your off-road stuff. The off-road stuff was so killer. People really need to go check out Motorsport, because it's like, to me, I don't look at your thing as like a gay publication. I just look at it as like, these are like dope little adventures that you guys do, and it just happens to be a bunch of gay dudes doing it to make sure that like the gay youth knows that, hey, it's okay, you can do this too.
Exactly. That's kind of why we're doing all this. First of all, it will be back to all dudes in the near future, because our one non-dude, we have our lovely and talented Mercedes. She just accepted an offer with Jalopnik.
Congratulations, Mercedes.
We are so pumped for her. She is transitioning over to that as a company and career and role. So she will be writing full-time over there. So please check us out, but check her out too. She'll be on jalopnik.com. As far as the rest of us clowns sitting here on our website, we did the cheap car rallycross this year. Last year we did the cheap off-road challenge. There will be new car reviews. There will be old car reviews. There will be racing and autocross adventures. I am also very excited to share that we are going to host a rallycross in 2021.
Yeah.
None of this coming along to the SCCA event and crashing their party like we did this year. We are going to host an event at Summit Point for 2 days. Bring a cheap car, bring your daily driver, bring whatever. More details to come, but we're working on dates right now. So it is going to be a big gay time. And I mean that in every sense of the word.
I might need to make a trip down for that one. Like, that would be really fun. I just got to find a car to shotgun in or something. I'm sure someone would let me like float around and drive like random shit.
We'll have people sharing cars, I'm sure. And we'll come up with a theme and a budget and all that. And if people don't want to participate, like, bring your daily, bring your Chevy Malibu. That sounds fun.
Sure.
Or just come hang out and take pictures, or come out and watch. Like, it's just going to be a big party. So dude, hopefully we can have parties by then.
I love it. I know, dude. It's so funny because I'm looking forward to normality. And the thing is, somewhere deep in everybody's brain, we have this like, 2021 will be fine. Spring 2021 will be normal. And it's like, dude, we don't know that. It's hard to get there.
Well, we are not planning for the spring. We're kicking the date a little farther out. I think we're looking like end of summer at the very earliest, just to be, doubly safe that maybe we can do this and not have to reschedule it. So,
well, I love
that's the biggest news.
I love it. I love that you guys are doing what you're doing. I love that it's not, I love that it's a passion project, because I do think this is going to grow in a really, like, it's going to be a slow go for a bit. And when it hits though, Jake, when this hits, like, it's going to hit and you're going to be like, oh my God.
I think it will. And, like I said, we started this, all of us have full-time jobs. We do this on nights and weekends and lunch hours and whenever we can crank something out. But, there was a point, like, I share all this with my day job coworkers because they think I'm this loon who has a ton of fun on his weekends, and also they're correct.
They are correct.
They asked, like, we're in consulting, there's kind of no hard feelings if people come and go, but they said, would you make this your full-time job at some point? And at first I was like, oh no, I just want to do this for fun, whatever. And now when people ask, like, fuck yes, I would do this as my full-time job.
Dude.
We need the subscribers on YouTube. We need the Facebook and Instagram followers. We need the connections and the everything, because if we're going to make a living doing this, it's going to have to get much bigger. But we can and will do it, because we're just trying to have fun and bring people along for the ride.
Not only do I believe you can do it, I believe you can do it without even remotely compromising core values and like purpose. I think it's doable. And I think that
agreed.
If nothing else, the last 6 months has taught me on YouTube that you can be yourself, do what you want to do. I don't have to jump off of a Lamborghini Aventador doing donuts to get views. I can actually just do what I want to do and be myself. I've done the dumb shit. I've tried a lot of avenues, and not only is it more sustainable to be yourself, it's so much more rewarding when it works.
And I just have no idea or no interest in trying to cash in on something that is going to get attention for 2 days and be forgotten about.
But I will say,
I'd rather, like you say, have the slow burn and be remembered.
If you do a tasteful calendar, an Out Motorsports calendar, I'm around the corner. You just give me a holler.
We'll see what we can do. We got to add to our online store, I guess.
Yeah. Oh my God.
We got some merch, but we can always add more.
I think like a really like anti-sexy calendar would be very funny. I would 100% hang that everywhere.
Yeah. I'll see. That could be a fun thing.
We could have Bear Month and all kinds of fun. It would be it could be fun. It could be fun.
Yeah. Well, now you're going to get my wheels turning for that, but I have enough to, we're also doing a trivia night coming up in November. So we're opening that up. We've got a membership program that we started for the sake of like monthly Zoom calls with each other to get to know each other and connect. We've got people calling in from as far as Australia at this point.
That's so cool.
So if nothing else, throw us $2 a month to come hear someone talk in a beautiful Australian accent for half an hour. But
that's a lot of pressure for that poor dude.
It is, but he's just wonderful. And he's going to be writing a few things for us too, I think, in the near future.
Very cool. We like a good Australian hoon.
We do. And he owns multiple Citrons, which is also just very intriguing. So
Citron enthusiast in Australia.
Yeah, there's like a lot to unpack there. But yeah, we're going to open this up. It's in the month of November, which is Thanksgiving, which is partially about conquering other people and stealing all their land and assets. But beyond that, you can be thankful for what you've got. And, I think we're all just thankful for this community. So I said, hey, let's do a trivia night. We'll open it up to anybody, not just members. And we're going to take donations all night during the event. And at the end of the night, the winning team gets to pick where they get donated. So I think that'll be a nice little time.
Well, if you can't tell already from the sardonic humor, we're definitely Northeasterners.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you coming on. This is great. I love what you're doing. I like the way you're going about it, because it makes even me feel like I'm included in this thing, because, even like I said, even though people come out, even though they're like, yeah, I'm gay, like it doesn't mean they fit into what's like the common gay culture. And I think what you're offering is really powerful, because it gives a lot of people a place to feel like they're not othered. They feel like they're exactly themselves, and they feel like they can ask those questions and decide, like for example, I could come to you and be like, hey, I felt pretty uncomfortable at this event because I said this, and it elicited a reaction when I said my boyfriend or whatever. This is a place I feel like, you can meet these people, you can hear these stories and actually get like real feedback from folks who have experienced what you've experienced or have the same fears. And that, I think, is a really powerful tool. And again, I don't think this is just for gay people. Like, I think that's one of the biggest things. Is like, this is a place where pretty much anybody who maybe feels othered, but otherwise just likes fucking cars. There's going to be a lot of people who just watch your stuff and literally like, why is this called Out Motorsports? I'm watching you review a Subaru Crosstrek, and I'm gaining a lot of insight into whether or not I might buy the CVT. And like, so that's the thing. I think you still offer like a product for everybody else.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just, this is for literally anyone, and we're making a very big point of that.
Excellent. Well, I hope to have you back on at some point soon. Maybe we do this rallycross. I'll bring the mics down. But otherwise, when you're big and famous, we'll have you back on to talk about what all the hopeful things you said back in the day, and then they all came true.
Well, that would be awesome. And thank you so much for having me on.
I'll talk to you soon. So what do you think? There's Jake. Jake's a pretty good guy, and I would encourage everyone to go check out outmotorsports.com for some of their articles. Check out their YouTube channel if you're looking at car reviews, things like that. But, I mean, look, at the end of the day, this is all about the love of driving. And basically, unless you're just an asshole, we can probably get along over it. And I think it's important that we make sure people feel like they're welcome if they share the passion. So thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you soon.